Hey everyone, here we are for the next video here. In today's video we're going to talk about a big thing actually. We're going to talk about my predictions for this year's 9.2 patch and where we're at so far with all the different DPS specs and classes. I think it's very important to go over this, and I'll be going over it in like as much detail as possible. So if you want to skip to certain sections of the video, by all means go ahead, but I'm going to go through each class spec in as much detail as possible and what's been nerfed, what's been buffed for each spec, and yeah, give my predictions so far. These are going to change obviously as we get into double legendary is going to be introduced into the game very soon, but yeah, without further ado, let's get into it, and yeah, let's get started. To be the Death Knight, and that will be we'll talk about the different types of Death Knights. You got the three different ones, right? Unholy, Blood, and Frost. So with Death Knight, we have a bunch of changes that have happened. Specifically for the conduit changes, you have Convocation of the Dead. When Festering Wound bursts, the cooldown is reduced by 1 second, was 0.5 seconds, so that's a buff. Festering Wood damage is increased by 15% overall. Embrace Death increases the damage of your next death coil by 40%, was 30%. So there's been a bunch of buffs in that regards. So I'd say in general, Death Knight has definitely had some buffs to most of the classes. So Eternal Hunger, we got 6% damage increase from your minion damage, was 3%. So there's a buff there as well. And the biggest one I think is the Brutal Grasp. So we have a potency conduit. A domination limb deals 30% damage now and was 15%. So that's kind of the overview of Death Knight as far as conduit changes have gone. And then when we get into specific Death Knight legendary power changes, we have the Final Sentence. So instantly gain a rune and your damage is increased by 4%, stacking up to 20% for 15 seconds. Damage was increased from 3% to 4%, and stacking increased from 15 to 20. So, and their duration as well was decreased from 18 to 15 seconds. So definitely a buff there for the Kyrian. For Necrolord, you have Abomination's Frenzy. The limbs were increased from 4 seconds, from 2 seconds, and a 20% damage increase instead of 10%. Night Fae, we have the strength gain from Death Dew is increased by 3%, and it's 2 seconds longer, which is nice from Rampant Transference. The runic power generation is increased by 20%. That's pretty big, guys. 20% is huge. And increased from 2% to 3%. So Blood Death Knight play PvP changes. So Rune of Spell Warning is applied to you with 50% increased effect, was 100%. So that's been a little bit of a nerf as far as that goes. So class tier sets, there's a bunch of other things that I can go through. I don't need to read them all, but I'm going to give you my opinion. So we'll start off with the Unholy Death Knight. So I think with all these changes that have gone, Unholy is probably one of the better classes as far as getting buffs for this. So I would say that Unholy, even for me, you know, I haven't actually played a Death Knight before, but I have watched YouTube videos and stuff like that. I would say Unholy is probably a respectable C class for me. It used to be a D class in 9.1, and now it's kind of moved on to like a C class, I would say. Next we have the Frost. So Frost has definitely had some changes to them. We have Arctic Assault. So Remorseless Winter grants 8% critical strike now, and that's with the 2 set, and with the 4 set, they have Consuming Killing Machines. Fires a glacial advance through your target. So there's definitely been some upgrades to them as well. For me, I'm still giving this a C class. I feel like it still needs some action to be done. for the Frost Death Knight. Even though, you know, in PvP I could be wrong, that, you know, different trinkets and this and that could be good down the road, but I think for me it's still in this respectable C class for me. Next up we have let's do Warlocks. Yes, so let's do Warlocks. Let's see what they've had for changes. So Warlocks have had looks like the Demonology Warlock has been gotten quite a bit of the most buffs. Affliction is still worrisome a little bit, but you know, they still have, I've seen some pretty awesome PvP Warlocks, so to say. But it looks like Seduction Impedability now causes the target to slowly walk towards the demon, and now also has a chance to break on damage, rather than always breaking on the first instance of damage. So Whiplash, you gotta enemies take a 1% increased damage from the Succubus or Incubus, stacking up to 10 times. Duration increased to 15 seconds, was 10 seconds before that. The Summon Succubus, the spell has been actually removed. So Warlock class tier set bonuses. You got the 2 set, the damage has been increased by 15%. And each cast extends the duration of Corruption, Agony, and Unstable Affliction by 2 seconds. So that's huge with the 2 set. That's very huge, having an increase of 15% damage. The 4 set has the Drain Soul has a 10% chance of a Shadow Bolt, and it has a 20% chance to make your next Malefic Rupture cost no soul shards. So that's also ideal as well. Next up we talk about Demonology. So Demonology's 2 set has a 100% chance to summon an additional Dreadstalker. So that's pretty awesome when you have, you know, you're using Dreadstalkers and you have 2 of them or 3 of them. You have an extra one that comes in. That's pretty ideal, getting that extra damage. So the Demonology is definitely awesome, I would say. But let's talk, and then I got Destruction as well. So we got Ritual of Pain, the 2 sets. So every 10 soul shards spent grants Ritual of Ruin, making your next Chaos Bolt or Rain of Fire consume no soul shards. So that's pretty ideal. The 4 set, you have when Chaos Bolt or Rain of Fire consumes a charge of Ritual of Ruin, you summon a Blasphemy for 8 seconds. So Destruction got a couple changes as well. So that's just kind of going into each one. Let's talk about Affliction. So for me, after all these, the 2 sets having a 15% damage increase, they have a 20% chance on your next Malefic Rupture to cost no soul shards. So Afflictions, to me, I would say, you know, even with all the buffs, they used to be a D class. I would say they're definitely in the respectable, I'd say B class. I know I may have some people who go, but I've seen some pretty incredible Affliction Warlocks in PvP so far, and they can be very, very deadly. Definitely deadly. I would say they're not the top out of all the different 3 specs, but they're definitely up there. That's for sure. Oh, I forgot to do Blood. I would say Blood is definitely down here. Yeah, so let's do that one. But Destruction, I would say, is right up there as far as Demonology, or as far as Warlocks go. I would say they're definitely, for me, I'd love to say they're an A class because they're pretty awesome to play and they're fun. I would say they're an A class, definitely, just because of the buffs that they got. 100% chance of extra Dreadstalker, a 15% chance dealing, you know, a soul shard to summon a malicious imp. So they're definitely their Destruction, and just the amount of burst damage that Demonology Destruction, yeah, sorry, that's right. Destruction would be, for me, they're ideal, but I still think they're at the lower end of the Warlock class. I don't think they're near the top yet. They still need some buffs to them, but I'd say they're not a B class. I would say they're more of like a C class, like a lower end C class for me. Just with all the kind of, you know, Demonology getting the buffs, Affliction getting the buffs, the Destruction didn't really get much. There really wasn't much of a change for damage. So yeah, so next up, let's do Mage. Mage for me is got a special place in my heart. I love mages, so but I'm gonna try to not be as biased as possible here. You Yeah, so let's talk about Frost. Let's go Frost first. So obviously we know they had some nerfs to their Blizzard, to their Frostbolt. So yeah, let's go over that. So the Blizzard Ice Shards Pelt area dealing 11.26% damage instead of 12.16. So it's definitely been nerfed. And each time Blizzard deals damage, the cooldown of Phrozen Orb is reduced by 0.25 seconds. It used to be 0.5 seconds, so that's huge. And Phrozen Orb damage used to be 15%, and now it's 14.3%. So Phrozen Orb got a nerf. They're still very viable, very viable PvP as far as that goes. And sorry guys, this whole thing I'm doing is all talking about PvP. So just so you guys know, this is all for PvP. So Frost Mage got a whole bunch of nerfs, so to say. There was really no buffs for them. Yeah, and then we get into let's get into Arcane. So actually, you know what? I'm gonna do Frost first. So since I was just talking about Frost, let's just do Frost. So for me, mages have always been either an S class or an A class. I don't see any mages kind of down in a B or a C or a D class. I think Frost Mage for me is definitely high A. Definitely could be an S. Shouldn't say definitely, but it could be an S. But I would say it's an A at this point with some of the nerfs that they got. Definitely hurts them. But I still am seeing, in the PvP area and watching YouTube videos and stuff like that, they are still very OP. But I think moving forward, they're probably, they probably should be in this class, but I'll leave it at that. Fire mages were pretty awesome near the beginning of the public test realm. They had some amazing burst damage, and they still do to date with combustion, Firebolt, all the different things that you can use with Frost Mage. You also have that dragon spell that stuns them. That's pretty amazing spell. So let's go to fire. So fire saw an increased duration. So their 2 set got a combustion of 2 seconds. I mean, it's not really ideal. Like, well, what is 2 seconds in a PvP? I mean, it's not too much of a buff, to tell you the truth. Their 4 set is while combustion is active, your Fire Blast and Phoenix Flames recharge 50% faster. So that's pretty ideal because you're trying to do burst damage, and those 2 Fire Blast and Phoenix Flames are definitely one of your go-tos for burst damage. But yeah, that's pretty much it for fire mages. I do know I think they got a damage increase in some of their like the fire blast and the fire bolt as well. I think they got a damage increase in that, but I'll have to double check on that. But to me, a fire mage used to be, in the beginning of the public test realm, they used to be an S class, but now they're definitely not. With the nerfs in Frost, and technically, fire mages didn't really get much at all. Maybe a couple little things with increased damage that I remember seeing it somewhere, but yes, I think they're still, for me, they're a B class. I did say there's, some of these mages should be either in the S or the A, but I think the fire mage is definitely not there. It's definitely a B class. I would probably put it before the affliction. Then comes Arcane. Arcane is a different one because the reason is for Arcane is that they didn't really get much for nerfs. While the fire and the frost didn't really get, they got nerfs, Arcane didn't. So to me, that's the biggest thing is with Arcane. They're definitely up there. I mean, it looks like I don't have one here, but I would say for Arcane guys, for DPS, they should be an S class. I would put them up as an S class. They're definitely above quite a bit. I have seen some crazy burst damage from them. They're really up there for sure. I would say because the 2 set increases your arcane damage dealt to enemies affected by touch of the Mage by 10%. So that's 10% increased damage in a spell. Touch of the Mage's duration in the 4 set is increased by 4 seconds and grants 25% mana regeneration for 12 seconds. So they probably never have to worry about mana at that point. So that's, I would put Arcane up as an S class. I think they're the best spec specification or class to play as a mage at this point. They are killing it. I don't know if you guys have seen that Arcane Mage Seavark. You should go take a look at him over on one of the YouTube channels that I follow. He's just unbelievably destroying everyone in PvP with the amount of burst damage that Arcane Mages can do. Next up we'll talk about, we just did Mage. Next up we'll talk about Demon Hunter. So Demon Hunter definitely is near the top for sure. Havoc is unbelievable. I've seen some crazy things with Havoc. So one of the things for their 2 set is they had an increased damage of Death Sweep and Annihilation, Blade Dance and Chaos Streak. Damage increased by 20%. 20% with the 2 set. The 4 set Metamorphosis duration is increased by 6 seconds. So every 60 Fury you consume reduces the cooldown of Metamorphosis by 1 second. So your Metamorphosis can pretty much be, you know, on cooldown a lot quicker now. So the amount of stuff that goes from Havoc Demon Hunter and the amount of different kind of attacks that you can do and everything that's involved with the Demon Hunter and how they're so evasive, I would say they're definitely near the top for me. The only problem is with them is I feel like they're like a boring class for myself. I just feel like they're boring. That's the only problem for me. So yeah, so I would say Havoc is an A class. They're up there for sure. I would say they're probably before Demonology. Yeah, so that's what I would say for that. Oh, sorry, here's the Arcane. I'm just blindless. I'm blind, sorry. So Arcane is definitely an S class. Sorry, I forgot to put that in. So that would be Demon Hunter. I'm just trying to think if I'm missing any of them. No, because the other one is a tank. Okay, cool. So that's Demon Hunter. Let's go over Druid. So Druid, guys, Druid is a different one. Feral just got completely nerfed. That's the problem with Feral. And Balance is ideal. I think is the best class right now for picking a Druid. Restoration got some damage increases as well, but they're more of a healer, but they still got damage increases. So Feral. So let's talk about Feral first. So Feral, we have nerfs. So increase the damage done by your cat form bleed abilities and finishing moves by 16%. So they did get a buff there. Tiger's Fury instantly restores 20 energy, increases the damage of all your attacks by 15%. So pretty ideal. They also saw some other nerfs. I remember that in the beginning there was a nerf, like a 50% nerf to their damage, like pretty much overall. And there was also I think there was one on one of the tier sets where they were having multiple things going on with one attack, and it was rigged. It was kind of cheating the system, so they removed that. So there was a whole bunch of nerfs to Feral Druid. So for me, Feral Druids are still like they used to be an S class, and now I would say they're a B class. Yeah, I definitely would say that they're a B class. For me, just because of all the nerfs that are going on. Almost a C class. If anything, they would be like a low, very low C class at the top. So yeah, that's what I would say for them. Balanced Druids. Balanced Druids are pretty ideal. I have a Balanced Druid, and they are so much fun to play, guys. They got a little bit of nerfs to some of their damage. I remember it was like a 5% nerf to Moonfire, I think it was. And I'm just trying to look here what else they had. Kindred ability. Balance Druid, here we go, PvP changes. So Frenzied Regeneration Healing is now reduced by 37.5%. It used to be 15%. So that's huge. Balance, there are 2 sets. You have Entering Lunar Eclipse, creates a Fury of Elune at 25% effectiveness. That follows your current target for 8 seconds. So definitely, you know, Fury of Elune has got nerfed. It used to be a lot more damage. Umbral Infusion, while in an Eclipse, the cost of Star Surge and Starfall is reduced by 20%. So you can see Balance definitely got a bunch of nerfs, but they are still, I'm seeing with raids and PvP in general, they are still a crazy spec to play. Like Moonfire is unbelievable. You got the Star Surge, you got the Fury of Elune, sorry. And Moonkin is definitely that crazy chicken character. I would say for me, they're an S class. They're very ideal to play and do some amazing AoE damage when it comes to raids, and even in PvP when you're playing 3v3 or 5 versus 5, you can still get some amazing AoE damage all while doing your single target damage. So Balance Druids to me are definitely an S class. Next up we'll talk about let's talk about Hunters. So Hunters are different. They didn't really get any buffs or nerfs. Really was the biggest thing for Torghast Anima powers was increase your pet's health by 15%. Was 25%, damage by 5%. So you know, something minor, but let's talk about Beast Mastery first. So Beast Mastery, they're 2 set. So Killing Frenzy, your kill command critical strike chance is increased by 15% for each stack of Frenzy your pet has. So Beast Mastery got a buff there for sure. Killing Frenzy and kill command critical hits increase the damage and cooldown reduction of your next Cobra Shot by 40%. As we know, as a Beast Mastery hunter, Cobra Shot is probably your #1 skill to use. So that's pretty ideal. If you're getting a 40% cooldown reduction, that's pretty ideal. So Beast Mastery has, for me, and there really wasn't anything else that happened to them. I would say, you know, with the critical strike chance increased by 15% and this and that, Beast Mastery, I'm seeing them near the top. I would say they're they're an A class. I would say top A class. Maybe even before, maybe that's debatable between Frost Mage and Beast Mastery Hunter, but I would say they're an A class. They're definitely up there. They're very like crazy amounts of damage, and they can really get away from you pretty quickly with all the different abilities that they have. So yeah, so that's that. Let's talk about survival. So let's do survival. So survival had Mad Bombardier. When kill command for their 2 set. When kill command resets, it has a 40% chance to make your next wildfire bomb incur no cooldown. So you can literally cast your next wildfire bomb immediately. That's pretty ideal. The Mad Bombardier wildfire bombs at 4 sets. This is having the 4 set, deals 30% additional damage. So this bonus is increased to 80% for bombs empowered by Mad Bombardier. Sorry, it's hard to say that a lot. So they definitely saw some buffs there. They're doing some crazy amounts of damage. But for me, a survival hunter, I would say, is in the A class, but definitely not that high. It wouldn't be as high as the other ones. I would say it's about here. We're below in the middle of Havoc and Demo, so they're definitely up near the top, I would say. A class, you know, kind of close to where you want them to be. So that's Hunter. Let's talk about Monk. So my favorite class. Monk is awesome. The Windwalker Monk is incredibly fun to play. And for sure, it's one of my favorite classes to play as well. So let's talk about Windwalker. So reverse harm. So Monk PvP changes, increases the healing done by your spell harm by 60%. So when you're in PvP, it used to be 100%. So their healing has got nerfed when you're in PvP. So that's like kind of that automatic. You click the one button, automatically heals you. For Windwalker, their 2 set, Fist of Fury is going to be huge, guys. Once the double legendaries come, Fist of Fury to me is probably one of the most powerful in-game, even for PvP. If you're casting Fist of Fury, you're casting your Earth, Wind, Fire as well. Your extra people that come with you when you're casting that spell. Increase Fist of Fury damage by 40%, guys. 40% increase. And then on top of that, you'll be able to use some of your Covenant spells and your Renown as well once you eventually get there. I think there's one that increase it by 8%. So you'll have 40% plus 8%, and then plus another 10% from your tier set. Awesome amounts of damage. Fist of Fury is probably one of my favorite attacks as a Windwalker monk. Their 4 set, the Primordial Potential. So after 10 offensive abilities, your next 3 offensive abilities deal an additional 22% damage. So that's huge. So you have that as well. So if you're doing Fist Fury, you're doing, Blackout Kick, you're doing your other main spell that you're using, you can literally do 20% damage on your 10th attack that you do. So that's huge. So if you can time it right, you do your 10th attack and you do Fist of Fury on that, that's 40% increased damage plus 22% increased damage plus 8% increased damage from some of your Renown and Covenant specs they're using. Fist of Fury is going to be crazy. So for me, I know this is kind of a bias. I don't want to be biased with this. But Windwalker monks, I would say, are definitely near the top. I don't know if they're like the best of the best. Arcane mages are insane, same as balance. I think Windwalker monks are an S class. They're definitely up there. They're either an S class or they're like a low A class, or sorry, a high A class, if I was to say that. So that's monks. Let's go with paladins. So yes, so paladins. Okay, so we have holy, which is not a DPS PvP. Let's talk about retribution. Okay, so holy paladin PvP changes. So word of glory, healing reduced by 30% in PvP combat. It used to be 20%. So they have given it a 10% increase in healing for retribution, holy paladins. The paladin class and holy, the 2 sets. So let's talk about, let's see here, we have paladin. Yeah, let's go. Okay, it doesn't even look like we have them here. Okay, so, but for me, if I was to pick where paladin should be, holy, obviously would be a C class, around either a B class or a C class. For me, protection is definitely not really ideal. Like, I mean, it's fun to play, but casting Shield of Righteousness increases your block chance by 4% for 15 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. That's their 2 set. The 4 set, Glorious Purpose, when you take damage, you have a chance equal to 100% of your block chance to cast Judgment at your attacker. So that's pretty cool. Judgment is obviously one of the pretty ideal spells and attacks that you can use. Retribution, their 2 set. When you benefit from Art of War, you gain Seraphim. So Seraphim is definitely one of their probably best spell that you can use, and it gains for 2 seconds. So that's the 2 set. So the 4 set, Art of War has a 50% chance to reset the cooldown of Wake of Ashes instead of Blade of Justice. So a couple different things going on there, but for me, I would say a Retribution Pally is an A class. If I was to put them up here, I would say an A class at the top of an A class. They're definitely, very ideal near the top for sure. So that's Paladin. Priest. So Priest. We have Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest. There was a whole bunch of Holy Priest changes. Holy Priest for sure got some damage increases. All healing abilities increased by 10%. Damage abilities increased by 15%. So Holy Priest is kind of the one class that got the most changes, so to say. But let's talk about Shadow. So Shadow for PvP, they're 2-set. So Darkened Mind, casting Devouring Plague, has a 40% chance to grant Dark Thought. Casting Searing Nightmare has a 25% chance to grant Dark Thought. So Dark Thought is, you know, obviously one of their main spells to use for sure. Having that is a buff for sure for the 2-set. The 4-set, consuming a Dark Thought causes your shadow to animate after a moment, dealing 20.9% of spell power times 6 that it could go up to. So that's like 125%. So that's pretty ideal. Shadow damage over 6 seconds to all enemies within 10 yards of your target. So Shadow is a different one. They didn't really get many buffs and really get many nerfs. But for me, a Shadow, I would say, is in the B. A high B, I would say. They're up there as far as PvP goes, but they're definitely not an A or an S for me. That's what I would say. Nice. So let's get on to Rogue. And sorry guys, I might as well get here. We're at the 30-minute mark. Thanks for watching this, guys. And if you made it this far, please please subscribe to my channel. It does help my channel grow. And this is my 2 cents on what I think the DPS specs and classes are ranking so far. Thanks. Let's get into Rogue. Okay, so Sub Rogue, Unreal, and Assassination Rogue. So Rogues to me are near the top for sure. Even every single one of them seems like. So let's talk about tier set bonuses. So Assassination. Let's do Assassination first. So Grudge and Sheath causes enemies within 15 yards to take 40% increased damage from your poison and bleeds for 9 seconds. So 40% increased damage for poison and bleeds is amazing. So when you're attacking, you're literally bleeding them out and poisoning them. The 4-set, so causes poison and bleeds on your target to expire 100% faster. So that's you know, getting the 40% increased damage, but now they're nerfing and giving the poison and bleeds on your target 100% faster. So there's a bit of a pro and there's a bit of a con there for sure. So Assassination to me didn't really get too much of a difference of changes, but for sure I think they would be near the top if I was going to ask. Oh shoot, I forgot to do Beast Mastery. So Beast Hunter, yeah, sorry, let's go back to Hunter. Sorry, let's do this. Let's go back to Hunter. And let's talk about Hunter. I did their first one, but I forgot to do the last one, which was Marksmanship. So Trick Shot now also increases the damage of the affected shot by 30%. And then they're spending 40 focus, grants you 1 charge of Trick Shots. So I would say Marksmanships are pretty, they're ideal. They're up there for sure. I would say they're more of I'd say they're above Shadow. I would put them in the B. Definitely put them in the B. I don't think they're in A class yet. I think that the best is the Beast Mastery one. So yeah, that would be my picks for that. Rogue, let's talk about Assassination. So we have Assassination, which I was just talking about. They got a couple little different changes, but I would put Assassination, where do I want to put them? I think they're definitely ideal, but they're not the best. Like a sub rogue for me is way higher up on the scale. I'll put them in an A class. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put Destruction in a D class. I really don't feel like they're anywhere close to being playable at this point. I'll change them up. Okay, so Sub Rogue is the best, in my opinion, the best. Outlaw is just not even. I think Outlaw is getting better. They have a couple things, but I wouldn't even put Outlaw on this. I would probably put Outlaw in the C or the B if I was to pick. But Sub Rogues are absolutely insane, and they're very easy to play. Any kind of rogue at this point is very easy to play. so that's something worth noting. Immortal Technique, the Shadow Strike has a 15% chance to grant Shadow Blades for 5 seconds. So when you're using Immortal Technique, Shadow Strike has a 15% chance to grant Shadow Blades for 5 seconds. So when you're doing an attack, boom, you have these Shadow Blades that are coming out for 5 seconds. Mortal Technique as well, that was the 2 sets. So the 4 set, your finishing moves have a 3% chance per combo point to cast Shadow Strike at up to 5 enemies within 15 yards. So yeah, so Immortal Technique definitely got a boost, a buff. I would say sub rogues in general are easy to play, fun to play, and they're insanely, when you're in PvP and you're in battlegrounds and stuff, they come out of nowhere and just boom, you're dead. So sub rogues to me are right up here in the S class. They're definitely S class. They may be actually number 1. I think they take number 1. I would say they definitely take number 1. Next up, let's talk about Shaman. So let's go over Shaman quickly. So probably out of all the different specs, I would say Shaman is the one that got the most buffs and the most changes to their character, with Elemental being one of the biggest ones that got changed. But yeah, enhancement Shamans too, they got some changes, but let's talk about Ice Fury. So Elemental Shamans, Ice Fury talent now causes your next 4 Frost Shocks to deal 225% increased damage. It was 300%, so it did get a bit of a nerf. So that's 75% nerf there. Fire Elemental has had the mana cost of its abilities reduced by 90% and should no longer run out of mana. So Fire Elemental is amazing. You don't even have to worry about mana, and it's basically you can use it like all the time. So Elemental, that's Elemental. So enhancement is a bit different, but we'll talk about Elemental first. What else do we have? Conduit changes. What else? Shaman legendaries. PvP changes. Here we go. Okay, so enhancement Shaman. That would be a bit different. We don't need to worry too much about that, but it looks like they did get a buff for enhancement Shaman. What else do we have? So let's talk about, okay. Enhancement and Elemental. Okay, so I would put both of them, I think, are A classes. Get me wrong here. I think one of them, could be easily an S class, but I think at this point they're near the top. One of the most powerful characters in the game and specifications in the game, but I would say that enhancement Shamans had quite a bit of changes. They're Fire Nova, Crash Lightning, Lava Lash, Wind Fire Totem, Flame Shock, Feral Spirit, Ice Strike. They're near the top. But let's talk about this. So I would put Elemental, I would put in the A class. I think they would definitely be around this area, before the Havoc, and around the Frost as well. They're definitely in that area. Whereas other one, enhancement. Yeah, let's see here. I would say that Elemental is near the top, and then I would say enhancement. It would be here, somewhere here as well, in the A range, I would say. I'm just not sure where I would put them. I think all the different changes that they got though, and the damage buffs and everything, they gotta be around this area. Like, I would say they're above the Frost Mage. I would say they're in that area around the A spec, or sorry, A level. So there's quite a bit of A levels you can see from my points here. So let's get into Warrior, and Warrior being the last class. One of the biggest things for Warrior PvP changes is Protection Warriors are looking very ideal with the damage increase to Protection Warriors. But Defensive Stance was one of the biggest nerfs in 9.2, basically coming out. defensive stance now reduces damage taken by 10% in PvP combat. It used to be 20%. So I say defensive stance with that involved is pretty, yeah, it's kind of a big factor. Arms, they're 2 sets. Colossus Smash and Warbreaker lasts 3 seconds longer, increases your damage dealt to affected enemies by additional 5%. They're 4 sets. Tactician has a 50% increased chance to proc against enemies with Colossal Smash and causes your next overpower to grant 2% strength, up to 20% for 15 seconds. So Arms had some, you know, definitely it had some differences and changes. But for me, Arms is very fun to play, and same as Fury. But although I'm not really a warrior person, that's not kind of my gameplay. But for me to give an opinion on where I think they're at, it would be kind of stupid to say that they're not an S or an A for both of these as far as PvP goes. But I would say Fury or Arms, you know, so let's do Arms. I'd say Arms is up in the S class, but the lower S class for me. And I would say Arms is probably up there too. Or sorry, Fury is probably up there too. But Fury had their 2 set, their Frenzy Destruction and Raging Blow deals 15% increased damage and gains an additional charge. And their 4 set has a 20% chance to grant Recklessness for 4 seconds. So Fury is definitely, I would say they're above Arms. I think Fury is near the top. So that's it, guys. That's my take on the DPS as far as World of Warcraft DPS specs tier list for 9.2 and where they're at. Let me know if you guys agree in the comments below, or let me know if you think any of these specs should be higher up or lower down. But I honestly think Destruction Warlock is probably one of the less favorable classes in the game right now, and you don't see a lot of them. So for me, that's kind of, you know, especially for PvP, you're definitely going Demonology for PvP. They're definitely the highest. Sub rogues and arcane mages are probably the go-to right now for damage, not only for AoE but also for PvP. They're just insane amounts of damage. And also, you know, for sub rogues, they can get around and, you know, cheap shot you, kidney shot you. Arcane mages are insane for burst damage. Take pretty much before you even attack them, they can take 75% of your health. So those two are ideal. I think Windwalker monks are going with double legendaries. They may even overtake these two. And balanced druids, you know, even though with a couple nerfs that they got, they're definitely right in the range of the S tier. But that's it for now, guys. That would be my take on 9.2 DPS specs and how I think that should go down, and how it is right now. So I know this is a bit longer of a video, so let me know, guys, if you made it to the end here. Please like this video, please subscribe and share my video for more videos that are upcoming. But yeah, that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next one. Okay. We'll see you guys in the next video. Should be next week. And stay tuned for my streaming, which will be this weekend. Saturday and Sunday, I'm hoping. If not Saturday, it will definitely be Sunday. So stay tuned, guys. Okay. See you guys later.